Good morning. Welcome to Storytime with Ranger Dina. Today we are filming at Fen Pond and also the Fen Ranger Station on the Selway River. We're going to have lots of cool footage afterwards, and there have been several flocks of geese flying over, so we might get them in here as well. Today, in spite of the fact that it is snowy here, I decided Over and Under the Pond was a perfect book to read, because when my kids were little, we used to bring them fishing here all the time, and there's some cool stuff in the book that I just thought was perfect for the area. So Over and Under the Pond by Kate Messner, with art by Christopher Silas Neal. So let's begin. Over and Under the Pond. Over the pond we slide, splashing through lily pads, sweeping through reeds. The water's a mirror reflecting the sky. Sunshine and clouds, then a shadow below. What's down there? I ask. Under the pond? Mom says. Under the pond is a whole hidden world of minnows and crayfish, turtles and bullfrogs. We're paddling over them now. Over the pond, we skim past tall rushes. Whirligig beetles loop and twirl, skaters on the warm summer surface. Under the pond, minnows dart through waving forests of grass, while a brook trout lurks, ready to lunge. So you see the brook trout? Yes, right there. Good spotting. Over the pond, we lift and dip and pull past a row of painted turtles on a waterlogged tree. 1, 2, 3. They slip off and away, splash, gurgle, sploosh, under the pond. Over the pond, cattails rustle and shush in the wind. Listen close. Cuckleree! Red-winged blackbirds race by. One has grass for her nest. Under the pond, a caddisfly larva builds a home of her own, a secret shelter of pebbles and sand. And caddisfly larvae are really cool. We'll have to, this summer, find a spot where we can get pictures of them, because they do. They're teeny tiny little somethings, and that's what they do. They run around and collect little tiny itty bitty teeny tiny rocks and sand and make their little houses. So we'll have to do that this summer, remind me. Over the pond, the shadows of trees lean out from the shore. We coast under a low hanging branch. A moose looks up with a mouthful of water lilies. We've interrupted his lunch. And what's cool is one time when the kids and I came fishing, we were fishing from the far dock, and the cow moose swam out to the middle of the pond and then was diving under to pick up the juicy nom-noms from down at the bottom of the pond while we were casting. It was really cool. Under the pond, beavers dive deep. They pump with powerful tails and rise to the surface with delectable roots from the mud. Follow-up story on the beaver. We came fishing, and the beaver swam out and picked or chewed off some willow branches and then drug them back under the far dock and we could hear them under our feet chewing on the willow branches. So I highly recommend Fen Pond just because there's so many things you can see, and plus you can fish. Over the pond, the wind gives us a push and stirs the light dappled leaves on shore. There, on a branch, a new goldfinch teeters, finally ready to fly. Under the pond, tadpoles are changing, learning to hop. They're losing tails, growing legs, growing up. Can you see the tadpoles growing into frogs? Perfect. Over the pond, there at the shore, tall and silent and still, a great blue heron stares down into the deep. It tenses, takes one long-legged step, and strikes. It catches a wiggling quicksilver minnow from where it was hiding, under the pond. Over the pond we drift, heads tipped up to the sun. A woodpecker clings to a teetering pine, digging for ants. You see the woodpecker digging for ants? Okay, good spot. Under the pond, an otter claws for freshwater mussels. Over the pond, a sleepy dragonfly lands for a rest. His spindly legs tickle my knee. Under the pond, dragonfly larvae watch what swims by. They catch minnows in their monster-fast jaws. Over the pond, the shadows stretch. Ospreys circle on quiet wings. Raccoons and mink stalk the shoreline for supper. Under the pond, with a flip of a tail, a crayfish disappears in the dark. It's the wrong time of year for osprey, but the osprey definitely like the Selway River. Over the pond, we head for home. We glide, swish, bump, right up onto shore as a far-off loon calls good night. The sky turns from sunset to dusk to dark. Night settles over the pond. The prowling catfish and drowsy turtles, the scuttling crayfish and tadpoles turned frogs, wading herons, and stalking raccoons. And the hidden world under the pond. And because last winter, our very first story time was Over and Under the Snow, you'll remember that this author has all the information about all the animals and bugs and birds and things that we read about in the story at the back of the book. So I highly recommend checking this out from your local library, and you can read about the caddisfly larva, all of those cool things. So highly recommend today's book, Over and Under the Pond, and thank you for being with us here today.